All right, now let's see how we can generate random numbers in C++. This is very useful. We can use random numbers in creating games that involve rolling a dice, card, or other elements. So we have a function called rand that is defined in a library called cstdlib. So on the top, we need to include another file from the standard library called cstdlib. Okay? Now we call this function and get a random integer. So let's store it here and then print it on the terminal. Now let's run this program. So this is the number I get. On your machine, you're probably going to get something different. Now here's the thing. Every time we run this program, we get the exact same number. The reason for this is that these numbers are not really random. They're basically based on some kind of mathematical formula. So to get a random number, we need to seed the random number generator with a different value. Let me show you what I mean. So we have another function called srand, that is short for seed rand. If we seed the random number generator with the value of 5, now we get a different random value. But again, every time we run this program, we get the exact same random number. If we seed this with a different number, now our random number is going to be different. So how can we get truly random numbers? Well, we have a function for getting the current time in terms of the number of seconds elapsed from January 1970. If we use that function, every time we run our program, we're going to get a different number. Let me show you. So first on the top, we need to include another file called ctime. In this file, we have a function called time that returns the current time in terms of number of seconds elapsed from January 1st, 1970. Now to call this function, we have to give it a special argument called null pointer or null PTR. We'll talk about this later in the course. If this is too confusing for you, just use the number 0. But CLion is going to give us a warning. Don't worry about that. It's just suggesting to use null pointer. Now this returns a long value, which is elapsed seconds. So to see this in action, instead of printing a random number, let's print the elapsed seconds. Now if you run our program, this is the number of seconds elapsed from January 1st, 1970. Now every time we run our program, we get a different value, right? So we can use this to seed the random number generator. So instead of hard coding the number 6, we can use elapsed seconds. Now we generate a random number and print it on the terminal. Take a look. So every time we run our program, we get a different random number. Great. But this random number is way too large. What if we want to specify an upper limit? Well, over here, where we generate the random number, we can use the modulus operator and specify the upper limit. So if we type 10, that's going to return the remainder of division by 10. So that can only be numbers 0 to 9, right? Take a look. So now we have 2. If we run our program again, we get 9, 3, and so on. Beautiful. Now we have a warning here under rand. The warning is saying the rand function has limited randomness. Use C++11 random library instead. So in C++11, we have a different way for generating random numbers, but that's more complicated. It's not suitable for beginners. So for now, this is a good way for you to learn how to generate random numbers. Now, we can make this code a little bit more concise. In this case, we don't really need this variable elapsed seconds because anyone familiar with C++ knows that time of 0 or time of null pointer returns the current time in terms of number of elapsed seconds. So we can grab this function and pass it as an argument to the srand function. And now we don't need this extra variable. So this function will return a value, and that value is going to be passed to this function as an argument. Okay? So this is how we can generate random numbers in C++. Now, as an exercise, I want you to write a program to roll a dice. So every time we run this program, we should get 2 random values between 1 to 6. Now, to limit the range of the random number, use this formula on the screen. You will see my solution next. All right, let's look at my solution. So on the top, we are including 3 files, iostream, cstdlib, and ctime. Now in the main function, we are seeding the random number generator with the current time. Now to generate a random value, we're going to use the formula I showed you earlier. So we call the rand function and then get the remainder of division by this expression. Our maximum value is 6, our minimum value is 1, and then we need to add 1 to it. Now someone else looking at this code will probably have no idea what these numbers represent. That's why I told you that you should avoid magic numbers. So this is a great opportunity to use a constant. So we define 2 constants, constant integer min value of 1 and constant integer max value of 6. Now here we can use the short type because we don't really need to store large numbers here. So it's better to use the short type to save system resources, the memory. So we have 2 constants. Now, instead of hard coding these magic numbers, we use our constants. And this makes our code more readable and easier to understand, okay? So using the modulus operator, we get the remainder of division by this expression. Now we need to wrap the whole thing in parentheses and add the minimum value to it. This will give us a random number between 1 to 6, so we can store it in a variable called die1 or first, whatever you prefer. Then we need to duplicate this and create a second variable called second. And finally, we can print everything using cout. So first, here we chain the stream insertion operator. We can add a comma and the second variable. Now, let's run our program. So we get 3 and 4, one more time, 5 and 6, 6 and 6, beautiful.